There was a time when work meant something, not just a paycheck and not just hours spent filling a day, but something you could feel over time. You showed up, you did your part, and little by little, things moved. It wasn't fast and it wasn't easy, but it made sense. There was a quiet understanding that effort led somewhere. You didn't question it. You just kept going, knowing that consistency would eventually meet you halfway. And for a while, it did. You could look back and see it. Small changes, small improvements, small steps forward. Nothing dramatic, nothing overnight, but enough to believe that what you were doing mattered. Then, somewhere along the way, things changed. Not all at once. Not in a way you could point to and say, this is when it happened. It was slower than that. Subtle. Almost unnoticeable at first. Until it wasn't. Now you work longer hours. You take on more. You push harder, thinking that if you just do a little more, things will start to shift again. But they don't. The effort is still there. If anything, there's more of it now than ever before. But the result feels smaller. A full day's work used to cover what you needed. It gave you a sense of stability, even if it wasn't perfect. Now, a full day's work barely keeps things from slipping. You finish the day not feeling accomplished, but relieved that nothing fell apart. That's not the same thing. Before, you could step back and see progress. Now, when you step back, all you see is repetition. The same routine, the same grind, the same numbers showing up again and again, never quite adding up to anything more. And that's the part that's hard to explain. Because on the surface, nothing looks wrong. You're still doing what you're supposed to do. You show up, you stay consistent, you don't cut corners, you keep going, even on the days when it feels pointless. But instead of building something, you're maintaining survival. That shift is quiet, but it changes everything. It turns work into something heavier, something that takes more out of you without giving anything back. It keeps you moving but never forward. And once you notice it, you can't ignore it. You realize that it's not about working harder anymore. It's not about trying more, or doing more, or pushing yourself further than you already have. Because the connection between effort and outcome isn't the same. It used to be, but it isn't now. And that's what makes it so difficult to accept, then and now. The effort is still there, but the outcome isn't. There was a time when things felt slower, but clearer. You didn't question everything back then. You didn't have to. There was a quiet understanding of how life worked. You knew what things cost, and more importantly, you knew what they were worth. Somehow, those two things were not so far apart. You could work a full day and feel like it meant something, not just in money, but in movement, in progress. Even if it was small, it was steady. You felt it. You trusted it. You didn't stand in stores calculating every decision. You didn't pause over something simple, wondering if it would cost you somewhere else later. You lived within your means, yes, but your means still felt like they belonged to you. Now, everything feels different. The numbers are everywhere. Prices, fees, taxes, tips, subscriptions. Things that used to be occasional are now constant. Always increasing, always shifting, always asking for more. You start noticing it slowly at first. It's not immediate. It's just a feeling. Something slightly off. Something you can't quite explain yet. Then one day, you look closer, and you see it. A job that pays less than what it takes to survive. An hour of your time exchanged for an amount that doesn't even cover the effort. a system that seems to expect more from you while giving you less in return. And that's when it hits you. This isn't random. It isn't bad luck. It isn't just a rough patch. It's a pattern. The system didn't break. It adjusted. Quietly, gradually, almost invisibly, it learned how much people could endure, how far things could be stretched before someone finally pushed back. But most people never had the luxury of pushing back, because life doesn't stop. Bills don't wait. Responsibility doesn't pause just because something doesn't make sense anymore. So you adapt. You keep going. You take the order. You take the shift. You accept what comes next. Not because it feels right, but because stopping isn't an option. And that's the part no one really talks about. It's not just that things got harder. It's that they got harder in a way that feels hidden. On the surface, everything still looks normal. There are jobs. There is money. There are opportunities. All the pieces are still there. But something underneath has changed. The connection between effort and reward didn't just weaken, it broke. And now people are standing in that space, trying to survive inside it. Still working, still trying, still doing what they were taught was right, but slowly beginning to understand that the rules no longer lead to the same outcome. And once you see it clearly, you can't unsee it. That quiet awareness stays with you. It doesn't shout. It doesn't demand attention. It just lingers, and it leaves you with one simple question. What changed? It doesn't arrive all at once. If it did, it might be easier to understand. There would be a moment you could point to, a clear line between what life used to feel like and what it has become. But that's not how it happens. It builds quietly, day by day, choice by choice, until one morning you wake up and realize you are carrying something you never agreed to carry. And the hardest part is, you can't remember when it started. It lives in the small moments. Standing in a store, holding something you need, and putting it back. Not because you don't want it, but because your mind has already moved ahead. Calculating, adjusting, preparing for everything else that comes after. The bills, the gas, the next day, the next week. Without realizing it, everything becomes a number. Everything becomes a decision that costs something. You begin to hesitate, not out of confusion, but out of awareness. You pause before accepting an order, before spending $1, before making what used to be simple choices. It's no longer about what you want or even what you need. It's about what you can afford to give up in order to make that decision. And the weight of it follows you. You still do what you're supposed to do. That part hasn't changed. You show up. You work. You push through days when your body is tired and your thoughts are somewhere else. You keep your word. You handle your responsibilities. You do everything you were taught would lead to something better. But somewhere along the way, something shifted. Not loudly, not in a way anyone else could hear. Just a quiet realization that settles in slowly. Asking a question you didn't expect to ask. Why does it feel like it's not enough anymore? That question doesn't come with anger. It comes with confusion. Because you're still moving, you're still trying, you're still doing everything the same way, maybe even harder than before. And yet nothing seems to move with you. From the outside, everything looks normal. You are functioning. You are surviving. You are doing what everyone else is doing. There are no obvious signs that anything is wrong. But inside, it feels different, heavier, because you remember when effort meant something, when doing the right thing felt like it was leading somewhere, when life, even if it wasn't easy, still made sense. Now it feels like the balance has shifted. You are carrying more than you used to, more responsibility, more pressure, more decisions, more awareness, and getting less in return. Less stability, less certainty, less reassurance that any of it is leading forward. And still, you don't stop. You don't complain. You don't walk away. You continue, because that is what you've always done. You continue because there isn't another option that feels real. So the weight stays, quiet and constant. It doesn't need to announce itself. It's there in every pause, in every calculation, in every moment you choose to keep going, even when something inside you feels off. Maybe that is what changed the most, not just the numbers, not just the system, but the feeling. The quiet awareness that something is no longer aligned the way it used to be, and no one seems to be correcting it. So you carry it every day without saying anything. And somehow, despite everything, you keep moving forward, not because it's easy, but because you don't know how not to.